is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Weezar. We've been joined by Councilmember Harris Dawson, Councilmember Mitch Englander, Councilmember Curran Price, and we have a quorum. So what we will do is first go through our multiple item comment cards. These are cards in which people have more than 2 or more items to speak on. So, let's see, there's one illegible writing. All I see is a D and an F at the end. I don't know who that is. That you, Wayne? All right. You use a different name every time you're here, so it's hard to know what different person every time you speak, sir.
I did it in honor of Mitchell Englander, the dwarf. Okay. So,
go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay, great. So now we got some puppet items to take care of. The South Valley Area Planning Commission's going to get a new commissioner. Yay! The most corrupt commission. Because see, on the South Valley Planning Commission, chairman of that commission's named Cochran, and on the report he's claiming he's of Latino heritage, but I don't know, Cochran, is that Espanol? I don't know. So even Councilman Englander finds that suspicious. So anyway, we got 2 women that are becoming reformists, so the balance is 2-2 right now, 2 fair and 2 evil and corrupt. So hopefully the 5-member commission will tilt 3-2 in favor of the people. And I'm just hoping it can work out. I mean, I look at his resume, the Vietnam veteran, decorated Vietnam veteran. Thank you for the service. And I would say, looking at this resume, it's one of the most impressive resumes I've seen on an area planning commission that I can remember. So I think unanimous forthwith should be on that one. It's an outstanding pick. And I think he'll do a good job. Now the rest of the stuff, me and the puppet didn't have a chance to vet this because this is, you keep changing these things all around all day long and night. But sufficient to say, whatever's in this thing, I guarantee you it's full of corruption. And so on January the 20th, 2017, the good news, the FBI and the U.S. Attorney will be back in business again watching this place. It's been 8 long years, and we're just so glad that everybody's going to be back working again. So good for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will move to item number 7. And if you could read that into the record, please. We have 1 comment card. We'll go through the comment card, and this was a consent item.
Yes, Councilman. This is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a proposed ordinance seeking amendments to the specific plan for the Vermont Western Transit-Oriented District-specific plan.
Thank you. 1 comment card, Julie Beals. Julie Beals.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Julie Beals, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Community Garden Council, and we manage 42 community gardens throughout LA County, and I just urge you to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So this was a consent item. Any objections to moving this item, approving and moving forward? Any language we need to use?
Yeah, so the language, Councilman, being to request the city attorney to prepare and present the ordinance.
Okay, let's incorporate that. So ordered. Item number 7, thank you. Item number 1, report from the Director of Planning. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chair Weezar, members of the committee. My 1 item to report on today is regarding the South Los Angeles and Southeast Los Angeles community plans. We have circulated a draft environmental impact report for both of those plans, and we've been having meetings earlier in November, and we'll be having some open houses and public hearings in early December regarding that. So we're excited to be updating those community plans and hopefully having them really reflect really where the city would like to see that area, that important vital area go into the future. And with that, it concludes my staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No questions? We'll receive and file this item. Item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, this is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Raymond Bishop to the South Valley APC.
Mr. Bishop here? Yes. Welcome. If you could come up, please. We may have a few questions for you. And first, thank you for agreeing to serve on the South Valley Area Planning Commission. You have a number of public service commitments, so we want to thank you for that. And if you could just let the committee know your interest in serving on this commission. And for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Gilbert Cedillo. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, Councilman Cedillo.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me here, and I appreciate all the work that you do for Los Angeles as members of our city council and other officials of our city. We have a common interest in improving our city, working together. I've served as a commissioner since first being appointed by Mayor Tom Bradley. I am a Vietnam veteran, combat veteran, and I think there's a lot of things that we can do to improve the quality of our life in Los Angeles. And I think that there's a great leadership team together, and I look forward to the opportunity to be a part of it.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Bishop? Yes, Mr. Price?
Just the observation, I know Mr. Bishop is certainly no stranger serving on commissions. He's done that over the years in service to a number of mayors and to the city, and we appreciate his willingness to step up to the plate one more time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Well, thank you very much. With that, we'll move to approve the reappointment of Mr. Raymond Bishop to the South Valley Area Planning Commission. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item number 3.
Item 3, Councilman, this is a motion by Council Members Ryu and Huizar. It's asking the city attorney to prepare an ordinance to modify street designation standards along North McCadden Place and CD4, and this is for the proposed site of the LGBT Center.
Okay, and let's do this. Let's take items 3 and 4 together. So if you could read item
Sure.
4 into the record as well.
Item 4, Councilman, this is the EIR and the report from the City Planning Commission. It's a general plan amendment and a vesting zone change for the proposed new headquarters for the LGBT Center in CD4.
Okay, thank you. So is the department here to present on these items?
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Sergio Ibarra, the planner for the McAdden project. On October 13, 2016, the City Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the McAdden project, a mixed-use project that will provide up to 135 units of affordable housing, temporary housing, and a broad range of programs and social services for at-risk seniors and young adults in the LGBT community. The McAdden project will also serve as a new headquarters for the LGBT Center. The Commission also adopted the Environmental Impact Report, Mitigation Monitoring Program, Statement of Overriding Considerations, and related California Environmental Quality Act and land use findings relative to the General Plan Amendment to the Hollywood Community Plan to change the land use designation from limited manufacturing to general commercial, and an ordinance to effect the vesting zone change and height district change from QM1-1VL-SN to TQC2-2D-SN for both sites, and a delimitation to allow an average 2-to-1 FAR over the entire site. The letter of determination was issued on October 26, 2016, and no appeals were filed. I'd also like to introduce revised language to the motion, which is item 3, The first of the three actions that instructs BOE instead of the city attorney to modify the street designation standards for McAdam Place. And planning staff will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Julia Duncan from Council District 4, you wish to speak now or after the other public speakers? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we have some cards for the applicants and the applicant's rep. Stephen Byrne, Simon Costello, Jack Rubens, and Craig Lawson. Now, what we do is we typically allow the applicant and or their rep 5 minutes, and then people want to submit separate cards, they have the right to do so and do 1 minute. Do you wish to do all 5 together, or how do you wish to do this? All 5 together with the 4 cards? Okay. Come on up.
Councilmember Weezer, members of the committee, I'm Craig Lawson, a land use consultant here this afternoon on behalf of the LGBT Center and McAdam Place LP. Good to see you and happy Thanksgiving. This is a very good, very interesting project. The mixed-use project includes housing for seniors, includes housing for youth. It has services including job training and counseling, brings together a number of different locations that the LGBT Center is currently operating in onto one campus. As staff mentioned to you, the Planning Commission approved this and recommended approval unanimously. We support the action of the Planning Commission. We had one minor suggestion, and that which I can go into right now, or I can do that at the end of our presentation, but it has to do with the percentage of electric vehicles that would be able to be parked in the parking structure. The staff recommended 5%. The Planning Commission went up to 20%. We're asking that the 5% be approved, mainly for cost reasons, but also because of the unique nature of this project and the fact that we think that 5% will be adequate for this particular project. I'm going to ask Jack Rubens also to come in and talk about what he's going to talk about will be the motion that has to do with the street issue. And we have a number of our supporters here, a number of other speakers, who can speak, or you can decide if you want to hear from them or not. But I'd like to just recognize those that are here in support. So can our supporters please raise your hands? Let us know that you're here. Okay, so we do have a number of supporters here. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Jack Rubin, Shepherd, Malden, Richter, and Hampton for the applicant. My one comment relates to item 3, which is the motion that Sergio Ibarra just mentioned to you. I just, for the record, want to read the language and let you know that we concur with the change. So this is in the first moving paragraph on the motion. The language right now reads, I therefore move that the City Council direct the City Attorney to prepare an ordinance to modify certain street standards. My understanding is the revised language would read, I therefore move that the City Council instruct BOE to modify the street standards. We do concur with that language and hope that you support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here to answer your questions, provide additional information if you have.
Sure, thank you. Any questions for the applicants at this time? Okay, no. If any arise, we will be sure to call upon you. Thank you.
And just the one item that we requested was the 20% down to 5% on the EV parking.
So you've requested that to reduce the, instead of the 20%, like to reduce it to what the planning staff recommendation of 5%?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. We'll take that up when dialogue begins. We'll go through public comment cards. Sage Johnson, Levin Riggins, Jacob Carlisle Robinson. Each have 1 minute to speak.
Are there any opposing cards on this item?
All of these say support, 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 and then the Council District 4.
Okay. So. If you want to hear from our supporters, we're happy to do that. In the interest of time, though, it's really your choice.
Yeah, it's up to them. We'll let them, as I call your name, if you just want to say we support and make life easier for all of us, or you want to come up and feel compelled to say something, you feel free to do that as well. I have their card, so I need to call their names and let them make that decision. Thank you, though. Okay, so Sage Johnson.
Good afternoon.
What's your name?
Sage Johnson.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm here with the Youth Center on Highland, LA LGBT Center. Happy holidays, and thank you for voting unanimously on the new building.
We haven't voted yet, but you're welcome.
Well then, I'm sorry, I kind of got happy.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, there's no opponents here, so it's a good prediction. Yes, your name?
I'm Levon Riggins.
Okay.
And I just want to say I support the notion. As a youth who goes to the center, has helped me out, and I just support everything that they're doing. So.
Okay, thank you. Jacob Carlisle Robinson, you wish to you support? Excellent. Rodney Yergans. Joel Boyd. An F, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Boyd. I'm 57 years old, and I've been an LA resident for 33 years. I've been HIV positive since 92 and disabled since 94. LA is my home, thank you, where I grow my food in my community garden, have friends and connections lasting decades. I'm currently being rent increased out of my apartment, where I've lived well over 20 years. I do not wish to leave my current area. This project is smack dab in the center of my Los Angeles world. It will be great, not just for me, but for many, and a very visible upgrade to how the area has looked for as long as I can remember. A recent study was done to access the best cities for LGBT citizens, the most accommodating, ease of access to health care and housing. There were 15 cities listed. LA was not there. LA is a world-class city, but clearly it can do better. There were 3 cities on the list from Texas. Texas.
Thank
Please
you.
don't exile me to live in Fresno.
Okay, thank you. Julia Duncan from Council District 4, Councilmember Ryu's office.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you, Julia Duncan, Councilmember David Ryu's office. As a former director of one of the largest nonprofit mental health care and homeless service providers in Los Angeles, the council member fully supports the LGB Centers project. Over the past year, the applicant has worked diligently with our office and the surrounding community to address concerns. The 100 senior affordable units, 35 affordable youth housing units, in addition to the transitional and emergency beds, are much needed, and the services the center provides to this underserved community are essential in helping alleviate our homeless crisis. The McCaden project is an innovative project that will provide a broad range of programs and social services for at-risk seniors and young adults in the LGBT community. It will also serve as the new headquarters for the LGBT Center, a 47-year-old organization that has nearly 600 employees and is one of the largest employers in Hollywood. The site is currently underutilized, and the requested entitlements would be consistent with the city's approach to properties north of Santa Monica. We support the applicant's request relating to the reduction in percentage for the electric vehicle supply equipment, as well as the designation of the street. And the council member fully supports the project. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So, any questions or comments? No? We'll take this item up, and at the request of the local council district and the applicant, we'll move to adopt the corrected resolution investing zone change ordinance and revised conditions of approval with the reduction in the electric vehicles to 5% on item 4. That'll be the motion on that. And the motion on 3 is to adopt the motion with the change to move it to instruct the BOE to modify the street designation standards in place of direction to the city attorney. Any questions or comments on those motions? Seeing none. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Herman, Herman is a regular character in these meetings. I've heard your voice twice yelling out. Let that be your first warning. Should you continue to disrupt this meeting, we will ask you to leave this meeting once again. Thank you. That approves this item, 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Item number 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission along with the Housing Department and a draft city attorney prepared ordinance relative to the expansion of the definition of shelter for the homeless. This is a citywide ordinance.
Okay, staff here to present on this item.
Councilmember, Planning Department and City Attorney's Office are both here to answer any questions.
Pardon me?
Planning Department and City Attorney's Office are both here to present and answer any questions. If you recall, this was a part of the package of ordinances that were presented to council when the council was also considering the temporary El Nino shelter crisis ordinance. That was passed. And this one remained pending. I understand that council has considered already the shelter crisis declaration for this year. This ordinance, once approved by council, would amend the code to apply to the coming year's shelter crisis.
Okay, have we circulated some instructions? Are those being circulated, or they're being circulated? Okay, as those items are circulated, I'll follow up with the city attorney's comments and just mention that last year, as was mentioned, we expected a very wet El Nino season, and we were looking to provide additional shelter beds. At the time, we liberalized some of the rules around emergency shelter during El Nino, and learning from that experience, we've been looking for ways now to continue that and to provide shelters, additional shelters, not only during the winter time, but throughout the years. Part of what we learned at the time was a better way of clearing the way for shelters to register with the city, notification of council offices and of neighbors when shelters apply to operate, and confirmation about the codes that apply so that if the city needs to respond to a complaint, it can. So we learned a lot when we expected one of the worst winter seasons in a very long time. We've corrected that and are correcting that, improving the process, but not only doing that, but looking to extend these shelters not only during the winter time, but much longer. We have circulated a set of instructions. We would ask the city attorney to amend the draft ordinance that it has provided to address those things that council wanted. And I want to note that Councilmember O'Farrell helped shape some of those amendments because they draw from what we did during the El Nino action with Councilmember O'Farrell's support. The changes we're asking for would require that the council have to renew any declaration of a shelter crisis annually. And they ask for a possible discretionary approval option for zones below R3. And again, thank you to the City Attorney's Office. I want to thank my colleague in the Homeless and Poverty Committee, the Chair, Councilmember Harris Dawson. And I also want to thank Mr. Cedillo for his support of the shelter in Highland Park. And this is the type of area that would receive some assistance through these actions. So with that, any questions or comments, Mr. Cedillo?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. We had a great experience last winter, what we had to do. But I'm concerned that the public didn't know, like, what can we do to make sure that more people are aware that there is this ordinance, that there are these opportunities. I'm pleased with the amendments, but you know, we're gearing up for upcoming year. I just want to know what are the things that we can do to publicize this. Do we direct it? Do we mandate it? So that other churches, other nonprofits, other groups that are inclined to know that these opportunities exist.
Good afternoon, Committee. Jason Kleen with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. Our office in the CLA, with the leadership of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee, are working with ITA to actually expand the city's website to have a homelessness page where all of the programs that the city is currently providing are updated, and ALASA is actually going to be doing outreach to notify not only their existing services providers but faith-based organizations that the program exists, to look to expand the number of facilities that want to participate in this program.
Okay. Thank you. I think a very good question, so that more people are aware that we're doing this and how we could make those opportunities available for those who want to take advantage of the new improved processes that we have in place. Mr. Price? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard this in Housing and in the Homeless Poverty Committee. It's an important program in all areas of the city, especially in the ninth and areas that are have large populations of homeless citizens, and so I'm happy to support this. And I, along with others, just ask that we publicize it and get the word out so that organizations know that these programs are available and that they can provide assistance. So, happy to support it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Harris-Dawson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. O'Farrell and Cedillo and Price. I join them in their applause of this program. I think it's a very, very good program. I do, however, also join them in concern about outreach, and I'll just tell you why, and this is purely anecdotal, and none of us have the ability to predict the future, but in the last 2 winters, our winters were relatively mild, and so we had a lot of underutilization. It looks like this winter is going to be serious, for lack of a better term. And you can already see the impact on the streets at night, just places where people would typically be camped out. They have not been when the temperature's gotten below 50 degrees at night. And so I'm just wondering how we think about some more creativity that, a local church or a local community may not even think to look on a LASA website. Can they call 311? Can they call the police station? Are there ways we can be more aggressive about outreach? Because I think just based on, again, it's all anecdotal, but just based on the amount of calls we've gotten for shelters in the last 2 weeks, up until just before this meeting started, it's much greater than it was last year, for example, when, it didn't go below 50 degrees very often and we had only a few rains. We've now had more rain in the last month probably than we had the whole winter.
Would you like us to report back to this committee or the Homelessness and Poverty Committee with how we can actually do more targeted outreach in terms of getting the word out that this program is available?
I would very much appreciate a report back to Homelessness and Poverty, and whatever committee chairs would like to hear it as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll have that, we'll approve that with a request that we have the reporting back on improving the outreach to both the Housing Committee and the Homeless and Poverty Committee. Any objections to that? Okay, we will adopt the reports and the instructions.
Councilman.
The city attorney prepared ordinance with the additional instructions
Yes.
as circulated. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Department. It's a proposed ordinance seeking standards for the so-called baseline mansionization ordinance and baseline hillside ordinance in the city.
Thank you. Before we get a report from planning, I'd like to just explain a bit about how we got to this point. And this item has had a long time of work in this committee and with this council. The city of LA actually adopted the baseline mansionization ordinance in 2008. But now, as the real estate development industry is booming, recently there has been significant development pressure in many of our mature neighborhoods throughout the city. We've learned that the BMO, which created a baseline for restricting mansionization, has some loopholes, and we are still seeing significant out-of-scale development in some of these neighborhoods. The BMO ordinance also established a process for individual neighborhoods to create more tailored residential floor area district. We have seen several requests for new RFA districts in various communities. At the same time, we are seeing similar out-of-scale development in our hillside areas. Developers and homeowners have been able to take advantage of exemptions in that ordinance that allows for large amounts of dirt hauling, which presents a hazard and inconvenience on our narrow hillside streets. Therefore, when Plum first heard the Councilmember Corrett's motion in July of 2014, we asked Planning to report back on how to comprehensively address some of these issues. In October of 2014, Planning submitted the Neighborhood Conservation Report that detailed a plan to draft a targeted ICO on several identified communities and to embark on edits to the BMO as well as RFA districts and how new HPOZs to address these issues of neighborhood character. In that same year's budget, the City Council funded a new neighborhood conservation unit to take on this work program. My office has been working with the other council offices to get planning through the managed hiring process so that they can staff up the unit and begin this very important work. I believe the planning department laid out a course to smartly and comprehensively address the need for neighborhood conservation. We adopted several ICOs to keep development in check while these new regulations could be crafted. Now, before us today is the update to these two ordinances. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the planning staff to further present this item. That was just more of a historical background for all of us to recognize how we got here. So, welcome.
Thank you. Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. I supervise the Code Studies section, and we are responsible for the ordinance that's in front of you today, which are modifications to the citywide single-family regulations. These are not the tailored single-family zones that you had mentioned in your report. That is a separate ordinance that is going on at a parallel track. So this is simply modifications to our existing R1 zones and other single-family zones. So yes, this has been going on for about 2 years. We've been working on many different fronts. We have created ICOs for almost 20 different neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods have a 2-year restriction on what they can build in those neighborhoods, and we have been developing new single-family zones that are coming out of the Recode LA project to make permanent regulations for those neighborhoods. The ordinance that's in front of you today is a citywide regulation to cover everything else, basically. Everything else that will not be getting a new zone right away out of Recode will be regulated from the baseline mansionization and baseline hillside ordinances that are the subject matter of today's hearing. So what we've done is since then we have been working on the new single-family zones, but we've also been working on the BMO, which is today. We've had we came up with our initial recommendation. We had 4 public hearings around the city. There was a lot of concerns about portions of it, so we went back. We revised our draft ordinance. We held 4 additional public hearings around the city. We brought that draft ordinance to our City Planning Commission. They have approved what the staff has recommended with some minor modifications, and that is what is here today in front of you. I could go into more detail, or
That's good for now. We'll go to public comment and then entertain some questions and comments from committee. So.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. We have quite a bit of cards here on this item. We have representatives from CD 4, 5, and 11. Do you wish to speak?
I'm sorry, excuse me. I did want to add that the Planning Department did submit a letter to the council file requesting that our current ordinance that you have in front of you be slightly modified, and the changes are outlined in this memo.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, we have representatives from CD 11, 5, and 4. Do you wish to speak now or after? After? Anybody speak now? You can step up. Okay. Thank you. So we'll go to public comment cards. Each person has 1 minute to speak. Ben Di Benedette.
Thank you, Mr.
Daniel
Chairman.
Love, and Jonathan Kim. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. Ben DiBenedetto. I am a business owner, real estate office owner in Studio City and a Studio City homeowner. By way of disclosure, I am a commissioner on the Mulholland Design Review Board, and I am here to speak on my own behalf and not that of the Design Review Board. I'm against the ordinance as it's written. I have two issues. One is the R1 zoning on conforming lots under 9,000 square feet, between 5,000, say, and 9,000 square feet. The ordinance, the way it is written now, severely limits building on those size lots. For instance, in the Silver Triangle, we have most of the lots are 5,000 square feet. Without an exemption, if you didn't have a second floor, you'd end up at about 1,850 square feet. Nobody's building that house. That neighborhood will become all rental neighborhood and no development.
Thank you. What other objection did you have?
The other objection that I have is outreach. They've done a gargantuan job. This is a huge project, and I appreciate it all, but single-family homeowners, by and large, are not informed, and I get calls every day from everybody about it.
Thank you. Daniel Love and Jonathan Kim.
Yes, my name's Dan Love. I'm representing the Bel Air Association and the Bel Air Homeowners Alliance, and we are generally in support of the BHO. It carries forward and actually strengthens the interim control order that we had in our area, and that really did a lot to mitigate the tremendous lack of security and safety in our streets because of the dirt hauling. There's been over 1 million cubic yards of dirt hauled out of the area between Mulholland Drive and Sunset Boulevard, Beverly Hills, and the freeway. And it's caused tremendous disruption to our neighborhood. So I thank the planning department. We've worked with them, participated in the public hearings, and we're going to continue to participate in the development of our own overlay zone, which will also strengthen us and give us more control over our local area. So thank you very much. We're in support.
Thank you. Jonathan Kim, Carol Eisner, and Elizabeth Rosenson.
Hello, I'm a resident of the Crestview neighborhood, and I support the updated BMO. A house has been built behind me, a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom, 4,000 square foot home that looks directly into my backyard. And this was to replace a 1,200 square foot home, a Steinkamp home, which was built in 1939. These homes were, at the time, considered to be the perfect homes for Southern California living, for single families with outdoor spaces and Spanish colonial architecture to reflect the history of the city. And the McMansion that has replaced it is a giant box that you could find pretty much anywhere that has very little outdoor space. There is something very much to be saved in these neighborhoods. We won't know how far we've come in this city unless we know where we were. And I think that people who want larger houses shouldn't think that they can just have a larger house anywhere. It affects neighbors. I've lost privacy and light in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Eisner.
Thank you for protecting and beautifying our wonderful city. I have lived in Crestview, CD10, for 28 years and purchased almost when I was that age. We purchased a house on the farthest corner of the west side that we could possibly afford, near La Cienega, and we raised our kids there, sent them to public school, and worked in the industry and helped our community grow. We hope that young people could return to our beautiful city, but they might not be able to afford a house. As Jonathan Kim just pointed out, a $2.5 million house sits with an attached garage and waits for a buyer to come along on our once pretty, modest street, filled with Spanish houses. If you eliminate the garage bonus and count square footage of attached garage and keep it in the back, you eliminate bonuses, you will keep our neighborhood, its character, improve house values, and attract those who can live in our neighborhood. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
work.
Elizabeth Rosenson, Steve Twinning, and Douglas Dodds.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm going to move this up a little. This is the first time I've ever spoken before a committee like this, so I appreciate your time. I live in West LA between Westwood Boulevard and Sepulveda, Santa Monica and Olympic, and in our neighborhood we're seeing a lot of this where folks buy a property, an 1,800 square foot, perfectly nice house, demolish it and build a 3,500, 4,000 square foot house, totally out of character for the neighborhood, imposing on the privacy and light of their neighbors. And really, I appreciate and support your efforts to try and rein this in and maintain the character of our neighborhoods. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for your service. I'm Steve Twining. I'm Chairman Emeritus of the Federation of Hillside and Canyon Associations and a President Emeritus of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. Above where I live, the ridge line was destroyed and 80,000 cubic yards of earth were moved. And for the last 5 years, all we have are 2 retaining walls, one of which has been landscaped and one which badly needs landscaping. Our community plan says grading shall be kept to a minimum. Well, we all know what a farce that is. Our single-family ranch houses are being replaced by large boxes today, taking up almost every inch of the flat portion of a lot. No view or light ordinance exists for our canyon residents. Some local cities have them, but we don't. I understand there is a movement now to go to 1,000 cubic yards per single-family lot regarding grading. In my neighborhood, one house has 23 bathrooms that's being built, and they're really like hotels. Three in my single-family neighborhood of traditional 2,000 to 4,000 square foot houses. We need the Bel Air overlay zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Dodds, Carol Sidlow, Robert Silverman.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your service and for hearing us today. Like many others, I've lived firsthand through the destruction of our neighborhoods by mansionization. On my block alone, there are 3 4,500 square foot homes all in a row, one next to the other and one behind me. They're forming a monolithic concrete wall, blocking our light and destroying the character of our neighborhood. The current draft makes big improvements, but we need to close the loopholes or the ordinance will have little improvement on what we have now. For starters, attached garages add 400 square feet of bloat, especially if they are in front of homes. At an absolute minimum, the ordinance should count square footage of garages attached to the front of houses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members, especially you, Councilman Huizar. I remember you from 2010. My name is Carol Sidlow, and I'm here today representing the Lookout Mountain Alliance located in Laurel Canyon. We support the amendments to the BHO and have submitted a letter to the council file. One thing is indisputable, the ongoing lack of enforcement. Ordinances mean nothing without enforcement, and these ordinances need clear language for that enforcement. As you are all aware, the lack of enforcement has cost the city millions of dollars in liability payouts due to dangerous conditions and public safety issues. All city departments involved in hillside development have a responsibility to be accountable for proper protocols and rules being followed, not just the issuance of a permit. But a hillside permit, specifically the submission of the hillside referral form, the joint referral form with the Department of City Planning, a slope analysis map, a slope band formula, among other requirements, need to be enforced. By right does not mean without rules. One more thing. With the passage of these amendments, the promise and the intent of the original BHO can finally be fulfilled, that the land would dictate what is built on it, not the other way around. Thank you for your time, and I also have some things to submit to the clerk.
Great, thank you. Robert Silverman, Adrian Scott Fine, Pamela Pearson. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Huizar, distinguished council members. My name is Robert Silverman. I'm a homeowner, Lower Council District 5, Westwood Century City area. I come before you to speak against the baseline mansionization ordinance as it's written. I think it's a little too restrictive. The ICO that's currently in place now, to me, is a very good compromise from the previous BMO to what is being proposed now. So my support would be for a 50% of the lot and excluding the 400 square foot of the garage to count against the floor area ratio. If a code is required to have covered parking, it shouldn't be counted against your living area. My neighborhood is growing. Families have changed. I bought my house 11 years ago with the intention to build something bigger later on for my family, and now I'm being penalized because I didn't build fast enough. So other people have taken advantage of things, and now the people that have had houses before aren't able to take advantage of the same things other people were. So I'm against it. 50% count the garage, not against the living area. Thank you, Chairman.
Great. Thank you. Adrian Scott Fine, Pamela Peterson, Amy Galpodet.
Good afternoon, Adrian Scott Fine with the Los Angeles Conservancy. We're in full support of this, and certainly the recommendations that have been made through City Planning Commission. This is an issue that affects much of our constituents and older historic neighborhoods throughout the city. We do want to thank city planning staff who have worked hard, I think, to develop a balanced approach in dealing with this issue. The one outstanding issue that we have at this point that we'd urge you to look at is the front-loaded attached garage. We do not believe this should be exempt or a bonus, and we would certainly press upon you to include this in the overall square footage count. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela? And after Pamela is Amy Galpodet. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that. Yeah, there you go. And Richard Platkin.
My comments are directed to the city attorney. We need the enforcement. I can't underscore that enough. I've received another letter from the city attorney's office intending to deny me my property rights. They evidently have been misled when issued a perpetual easement for the Mulholland thoroughfare to think that at some point that this would ever ripen to ownership and then be given after damaged extensively to an adjacent property owner. I have beseeched this department extensively, and I'm not getting any assistance, and this is what will occur to so many other developments. This should be sufficient damage to somebody's property to preclude somebody from being able to come back again and again, trench your front hillside, install gas lines without permits. I want my land back. It's not yours.
Thank you. Amy?
My name is Amy Galladay. As a landlord, I belong to 4 homeowner associations, so I'm here to address their major concerns. We need a loophole-free mansionization ordinance. We need enforcement of the ordinance. We need laws for the residents of this city, not the wants of developers. We do not need affordable housing taken away to be replaced by huge, ugly cement slabs built for the rich. Okay. You can talking about property rights. Am I to be deprived of sunlight in my home and yard so my next door neighbor can have my share? Is sunlight for sale? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Richard Platkin, Tom Grant, and Gail Levin.
I'm Richard Platkin, representing the Beverly Wilshire Homes Association. Our neighborhoods have been the epicenter of mansionization for over a decade, and we have been leading advocates against mansionization. Each time we have the same message. If you close mansionization through the front door, but you insert loopholes, you open it up through the back door. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why we're back again with the same message. This version still retains the loopholes that the council motion instructed the city planning department to delete. More specifically, it still retains exclusion for attached garages from FAR calculations. and it still retains the 20% bonus in the RA, RS, and RE zones. Our request is that you adhere to the council motion that was originally adopted unanimously and not water it down one more time through loopholes.
Okay. Tom Grant, Gale 11.
Yeah, in 2008, the City Council adopted a mansionization ordinance, and they specified exactly how large a house could be built next door to me. And that's exactly what the developers built on both sides and behind me, 5,000 square foot houses. And now the audacity is to say that they're doing some fine tuning to that ordinance, where they're cutting down the size of the house by 1,200 square feet. That's 30% reduction in the size of the house. That is equivalent to almost $750,000 in value of the house. So for whose benefit is it? It's certainly not mine that I should be punished now that I can't build the same size house as my neighbors.
Gale 11.
I'm Gail Levin, and I'd like to talk about garages. Attached garages add 400 square feet of bloat. They do away with the driveways that put some air and light between houses, and they disrupt the feel of older neighborhoods. So with the attached garages, you do not have the old neighborhood that you're talking about. A 400 square foot garage adds just as much mass as any other 400 square foot room. Garage space attached to the house must be counted.
Thank you. There's a card here with a long name, or Sarit Finkistent, and Stephen Summers, Danny Mosser. Can you repeat your name, please, for the record?
My name is Sarit Finkelstein. I live in Brentwood. I oppose to the changes of the BHO. The old one was hard enough. The way it is written, I don't think it's applicable to all the neighborhoods. It is applicable to some neighborhoods, and I agree with a lot of the things that were said here by certain people, but when you have big homes, 8,000, 10,000 square feet, and you can't build a 4,000 square feet next to it, and you're being punished, that's not right. So what I think you need to do is you have to classify the areas where you enforce this ordinance, so that in areas like Brentwood, where the houses are 15,000 square feet, 8,000 square feet, and I bought my house and I'm going to retire, I had a fire, unfortunately, not to my, I didn't cause it. I cannot rebuild it and be compatible and keep my value. So you're punishing people like me. So you have to go neighborhood by neighborhood and say, you know, this is a small neighborhood. Most of the neighborhoods here are 1,800 square feet. Yes, you shouldn't go over it. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Hi there, my name is Stephen Summers with Crest Real Estate. Just two comments, or one comment and one recommendation. The first was, I think everyone would really appreciate at the end of the hearing if you could very clearly clarify the exact process and timelines moving forward for the adoption of the new ordinances. And the second comment is there was one revision added after the Planning Commission hearing, which was to reduce the garage exemption from 400 square feet to 200 square feet, except that detached garages on the rear of lots maintain a 400 square foot exemption. This was a result of several comments primarily about the baseline mansionization ordinance areas and the flats of the city at the Planning Commission hearing, but it's also been applied to the BHO. And in the Hillside area, you very rarely are able to have a detached garage on the rear half of a lot because of the slope of these properties. In addition, on these narrower streets in the Hillside area, it's usually preferred to have more on-site parking so that fewer people are on the streets. So I would recommend the 400 square foot exemption for garages be maintained in the BHO specifically. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Mosser, Frank Rosado, Tammy Rosado.
Good afternoon. My name is Deanie Mosser. I was born in Los Angeles, and I've lived here for more than 60 years. I've seen many changes in Los Angeles, and the best change so far has been the light rail. The worst change has been the decades-long destruction of residential neighborhoods with overscaled, out-of-character, inappropriate, unsustainable, offensive McMansions. I want to say that I agree with the Los Angeles Conservancy position. I very much agree with what Richard Platkin said. And I'm here today to request that the Plum Committee accept the Planning Commission's recommendations, but please further strengthen the BMO by including all square footage of attached garages in the total allowable square footage count. 400-foot front-loading garages disrupt the continuity and character of existing older homes. Therefore, garage space attached to the house must be counted. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Rosato.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for your time. My name is Frank Rosato. I live in the La Brea, Hancock neighborhood. My wife and I are in favor of the BMO as it stands, with one exception. It's been talked about a lot, the garage exemption. We love our home. We bought it because we love the neighborhood and its charm. We feel that the detached garages in the rear allow for a little bit of space between our home and the home next door. So having that detached rear garage is very important to us. We have several larger homes that have been put in our neighborhood, and the front-loaded garage now accommodates two vehicles in the driveway, a couple of vehicles in the street. I hear a lot of talk about affordable housing in the news, and these large homes that are out of scale with the neighborhood are not affordable housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tammy Rosato, Debbie Gagan, John Southern.
Hi, I'm Tammy Rosato. I've lived in La Brea, Hancock since 1998. I will echo what my husband just said. We are in favor of the BMO as it stands, and we like the new R1 single family zones that we have discussed at the meetings with Phyllis and her team. In addition to everything that's been said today, you know, the mansions and mansionization of our neighborhood really create a tremendous amount of waste. They consume way more material, energy, and water than our single-family homes. It burdens the infrastructure of our city. They're demolishing these 1920 character homes and all of the trees and everything that make our community so charming and unique. We thank you for inviting us, and I don't know how many more meetings there are, but we feel like we know the city planning pretty well. And anyway, thank you.
You saw their children grow up, huh? Debbie Gagan.
Hi,
John Southern.
It's
so
Gagan
Debbie
or
Gagan?
Gagan.
Gagan.
Gagan with the wind, yeah. I am supportive of the BMO. I live in Pickford Village, CD10, and there are just some slight modifications that I would like to recommend. The goal is to keep the integrity of the neighborhoods. So as far as bulk and size, please, please, please count the entire garage as part of the square footage, and also lose all the bonuses. These two elements will ensure that the characters and scale will remain in our future homes. And, you know, as I put on my little visitor sticker, I'm reminded that by wearing this, it's my responsibility to be mindful and respectful of my surroundings, and I think the same should apply to our neighborhoods. We are temporary stewards, and we need to be mindful and respectful of each neighborhood and surroundings. So please, count all the garages and lose the bonuses. Thank you.
Thank you. John Southern.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is John Southern. I'm a licensed architect and member of the American Institute of Architects here in Los Angeles. And I'm here to talk about the BHO. I have no problems with the way the BMO is written, but having 10 years of experience building hillside homes here in Los Angeles, including 3 that I built myself, I can tell you that the existing BHO is fine as it is. Even so, the amendments that have been proposed largely seem acceptable from a feasibility standpoint, with the exception of four. Number one, we need to maintain the 400 square foot parking exemption until Department of City Planning gets rid of the second space. There's no reason that 200 square feet should be taken away from the habitable square feet of the home when the homeowner is still on the hook to provide two covered spaces. The next is that the 5-foot minimum setback needs to still be applicable with regard to substandard hillside streets. In many cases, it's impossible to build anything deeper into the slope. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert Schlesinger, Donald Lowe's, and Stephanie Savage.
Hang on 1 second, please. I'm waiting for something to come up here. I'm Bob Schlesinger. I am a member of the Benedict Canyon Association, Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, and the Planning and Land Use Committee. Let's go. Don, bring him out. Now, come on. Okay.
Sir, your time is running out, sir. If you, you should use your time to speak.
You see before you, this truck reduced to 2.5 inches. Okay? When you take out 2,000 cubic yards, there's a fluff factor of 1.25%. 2,000 cubic yards becomes 2,500 cubic yards. The safety in a canyon with substandard streets, blind curves, and in a high fire severity zone, taking out 2,000 cubic yards is not adequate. We have to go to 1,000 cubic yards. I don't have any problems with what's happening in Bel Air with taking out 6,000 cubic yards on the high end, but the low end has to go down to 1,000 cubic yards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donald Lowe's and Stephanie Savage.
Yeah, I will. I can leave this out. Go ahead.
I'm Donald Lowe's. I live in Benedict Canyon. The purpose of the BMO HMO was to address these out-of-scale development, and the staff report indicates that they want to regulate the height in the area, and we're working against the long-term program of protecting the Santa Monica Mountains and their preservation. We want to make 2 points. Number one, in the slope band area, we'd like to ensure that the cumulative height of all the buildings in a slope band shall not exceed the height in the formula that's set out in the table 1221C410. And the second point is that the new use of caissons in the hill are a new burden that we're facing, and we believe that those should be, the dirt that comes out for those caissons should be credited against the export, and
thank you, sir.
The department should be considering a formula for coordinating that with the FAR of the houses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephanie Savage, Shelley Wagers, Lorraine Kirsten, and Dr. Anna Serrano.
Stephanie Savage, Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. We handed you a packet of some math we did for some visual aids. We decided to look at the shipping container as a module for how much yardage this means in the extreme conditions in R1 on standard streets. and substandard streets and RE40 on standard streets and substandard streets. What that equates to in R1 standard streets is 28.4 containers, shipping containers that are 40 feet. We tried to put it up in the back. That's 40 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet. So that equates to 2390 cubic feet of dirt. So in a R1 substandard area, that's 21.8 shipping containers. In a RE40 standard streets, it's 93.2 shipping containers. In a RE40 substandard condition, that equates to 70 shipping containers. R1 zones abut RE40 zones and are accessed by substandard streets. We've also included in the packet some photographs of hillside substandard streets in case you haven't driven on one. Oftentimes they're 10 feet wide.
Thank you. And can you take the prop for Mr. Schlesinger, please? Thank you. Shelley Wagers, Lorraine Kirsten, and Dr. Ana Serrano.
Thank you. Shelley Wagers, Los Angeles homeowner. I'll make 3 brief points. First, at the CPC hearing, speaker after speaker demanded that the city count attached garages as square footage. The CPC president called the testimony overwhelming and added, square footage is square footage. But they needed a unanimous vote, and they got it with a compromise that keeps the most damaging loophole in the ordinance. This committee must set things right and count attached garages as floor space. Second, mansionization is bad for property values. Bloomberg News reports McMansion's return on investment has dropped like a stone in 85 of the 100 largest U.S. cities. MSN Money says McMansion resale values are in the gutter. Last, in the current political climate, you could not find a better time to put voters' interests ahead of special interests. Stop mansionization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Kirsten. I'm a 30-year resident of CD10, the Faircrest Heights area. I thank you for limiting the mansionization. I would agree with some of the previous speakers that the loophole should be removed. The 400-foot bonus for the attached garage, and also the 20% bonus for energy saving. A loophole is a loophole. I'd like to remind you that the cohesion of a neighborhood is what creates strong neighborhoods, and if one party comes in, whether a developer or a family, and puts their needs ahead of the surrounding neighbors, which could be 3 neighbors, it could be as many as 6 neighbors, that's not right for the majority. And I understand some people may feel trodden upon, but the cohesion of the neighborhood is the most important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Ana Serrano, Scott Chamberlain, Christine Rangel.
Hi, my name is Anna Serrano. Thank you so much for listening to us today. I am also in favor of BMO, but I would like the footage, the square footage of the garages to also be part of the total square footage of a house. I believe this is a necessary step to keep the integrity of our neighborhood's character, as well as to attend to water conservation and energy efficiency. And I do have a huge block in back of my yard now with a swimming pool and a pump that goes off for about 4 hours a day that I can hear in my bedroom, and it is quite disturbing. And I think that this is something that we need to pay attention to, and quality of life is really important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Chamberlain, Christine Rangel, Scott Olet.
Hi, thanks, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm Scott Chamberlain. I'm a homeowner from Venice. I'm in favor of the modifications We're adding a two-bedroom, two bedrooms and two baths to a 900 square foot 2+1 in order to make the house livable, for a total of 2150 square feet. I don't know that much about all this, but as far as I know, we've run afoul of the mansionization ordinance because we set back the second floor in order to preserve the character of the neighborhood and the original house design. We're a poster child for sub 5,000 square foot lot, according to my designer, for which density bonuses were created. The revision that applies to my project will allow for RFA of 45% of lot size, with an additional 20% for an upper floor that does not exceed 75% of base floor area, which probably means more to you than it does to me. Anyway, those modifications will fix my problem, and I'm told this is a problem that a lot of other people are having, that we have all these boxes they're talking about with the garages going off around us, and we are not able to do something that's appropriate to the neighborhood and to the original design. Thank you all for all your thinking about this.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Christine from the BIA, and we oppose the ordinance. While LA needs a set of sensible guidelines in order to address out-of-scale homes, this ordinance is far too restrictive. Neighbor issues can be solved with architecture and good design without sacrificing personal property rights and housing production. This is meant to be, as the name suggests, a baseline ordinance. The RFA process should be used for individual communities, not blanketed policy. A more fair and equitable ordinance that does not penalize property owners and still addresses out-of-scale homes. We recommend you incorporate the changes in the letter that we sent you, and I've also brought copies. Most property owners do not know about this ordinance. This will hurt young couples who cannot afford to purchase anything other than a two-bedroom starter home from the 50s with the hopes of expanding for their growing family. LA has a very old housing stock that needs refurbishment, and redevelopment of properties is a productive, revenue-generating cottage industry that needs to be conserved. We urge you to inject more flexibility into the ordinance because one size does not fit all. Thank you.
Scott? Michael? I think it's Ucho? No. Lecho? I don't know if it's a U or an L or an L. So,
hi, I'm Scott Willett. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I work with Williams Homes. I'm also an executive board member for the Building Industry Association, and I'm one of the authors of the Studio City RFA. So I speak with a lot of experience on this topic. First of all, there's process issues with how this came about. The outreach was very poor, and most homeowners don't know, and it's not being disclosed in the marketplace between buyers and sellers. Also, Corret's office, the neighborhood councils, overly influenced the process, and individual property owners' voices were drowned out. So we need a little bit more balance. If you accept the recommendation from the Planning Commission, non-Hillside R1 property owners lose 25% of their building rights. I think that is too harsh of a penalty. If that same property owner has a garage-forward home, they lose 30% of their buildable rights because they don't get an exemption for both garage spaces. I think there's a quick, easy fix for this. The FAR for R1 lots should be increased to 50% and give a two-car exemption for all homes. Thank you.
Michael, Fred Paul, Ellen Larette or Lanette, and Charlie Mims. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Michael. I develop empty lots in South Los Angeles, so completely different ballgame. There's at least 1 million people living over there. We develop only empty lots, and then I just want to bring out one of the examples, how would this affect it, and I think it needs a little modification where we will be guaranteed at least 1,200 square feet of the home. I'm developing the one lot, which is 2,200, with a new modification. I will be able to develop it as a 990. You subtract 400 mandatory garage, I'm left with 590. So what's going to happen is this lot, it's going to just stand there empty forever. And this particular project is close to Crenshaw and Florence, and there's plenty of lots like that, and then they will just sit empty as a dumpsters in the neighborhood if we don't allow to develop them.
Thank you. Fred? Paul?
Hi, I'm Fred Pohl. I've lived in the La Brea, Hancock area for 25 years now. Until the interim control ordinance went into effect last year, we were terrified every time a house in our neighborhood became empty that it would turn into one of these monstrous eyesores with a garage in front. My wife and I support the BMO without the loopholes. In our neighborhood, just having a front garage by itself is an insult to the character of the neighborhood, no matter what else you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen?
I want to thank all of you for your service, and I hope this is the last time we have to keep reviewing this. I'm here simply to support the revised BMO and also the specific RV1 new in the Beverly Wood area, which has been a huge compromise, a result of 3 years of coming both to this commission and other commissions and within the neighborhood, the community meetings, Beverly Wood Homeowners Association meeting, outreach meetings by LA City Planner Christine Saponara, Councilperson Koretz's planning deputy Sean Bayless, and many other patient planning staff. Mansionization continues to be rampant in the Beverly Wood area, destroying our neighborhood's fabric and garden oasis character in the midst of LA. I'm a born Los Angelino and an architect, and as much as I'd love to say that most people can develop their homes appropriately for their size and for their neighborhood, we've seen the results that there's no good character and style. Please support the new planning changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie Mims, Anthony Krinsky.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Charlie Mims. I'm president of the Hillside Federation, and we in general support the Councilmember Kritz and Rue's letter dated May 4th, 2016. We have a letter on file from the Federation dated May 11th, 2016. So I won't go over everything there. I'd just like to hit a couple of items. One is that we believe that that the hillsides that are 1-to-1 or greater slope need to be mapped. We understand that's a long process. It can't be done all at one time or even in a year, but it needs to be started. So we'd recommend that be part of the direction to planning. We're also concerned, particularly in the hillside areas on the BHO, with the exemption for basement areas. If you look at just about every development in the hillside that has an exempt basement, many times the basement's larger than the habitable floor area. We don't think that should be a by right exemption. If anything, there should be a discretionary process to show that it makes sense for the particular property. And that's about it. You can refer to our letter for other items. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anthony Krinsky, Herman, Annie Gagan.
Thank you very much. I really want to offer my appreciation for the sensitivities to various neighborhoods in Los Angeles. My wife and I are part of the Crestview neighborhood. We have a growing family. Many of my friends have a growing family. Some of the restrictions seem a bit arbitrary in terms of size. I'm really hoping that we strike a sensible compromise of something like 0.5 for neighborhoods like ours. It's a very unique place, especially for Jewish families, west of New York. And there's hardly any other place we can go where there are a lot of kosher restaurants and so forth. Some of the families are larger. We don't want boxy homes either, but I don't see character in these regulations. They just seem to be about size. And if we work at home and we have more children, our parents get old, they might move in with us. Surely there's a way to have reasonably sized homes that also fit in and don't impugn on neighbors' rights. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Isn't it apparent that we oppose of these Mansonization projects
as you create the gentrification and densify our communities to work no better than what they are? So what services will you improve after you allow this bullshit, this fucking white shit of yours I call leave the black fucking garden of Los Angeles alone? Because you niggers know what you're doing to our communities. You know what you've done to our communities. Nobody wants the eyesores. So on behalf of the public, as I reach out to your stupidity and as I cheer out in my elaborate fuck you presentation, I oppose to your fucked up recommendations as I oppose to your fucked up conditions on these plans. I would like to see change and amendment with transparency and more time for public comment to address the real fucking issue here. So fuck you, Mr. Chair, the same way your wetback ass brought Fiesta Broadway to our communities. Fuck you.
For those of you who are attending these meetings for the first time, those who attended other meetings have seen Mr. Herman here before, and because of our First Amendment, he has the right to say and express himself how he wishes. It's unfortunate, in my opinion, that he does it that way because no one will listen to whatever he has to say, but he has the right to say that. Our city attorney advises us that we allow that vulgar language to occur here, so we have to do that. Thank you. Annie Gagan, Robin Greenberg.
Hi, good afternoon, and I am sorry to all of you for that. God bless you. I'm lucky I live in an HPOZ. Working class from the Bronx, God has blessed us. But I drive through these streets every day, and it brings tears to my eyes to see how these neighborhoods are being destroyed by white concrete boxes in these beautiful historic neighborhoods. And I think sometimes you have to come from a place like the Bronx to appreciate the beauty here, the character, and what you have here that's so unique and what's being destroyed. I'm against the McMansions. I'm grateful to LA Conservancy, Richard Platkin and Shelley Wagers. These neighborhoods belong to all of us, and they belong to you too, gentlemen. And if you haven't seen what's going up in them, I encourage you to drive through, walk through, or cycle through and see how they're being destroyed. It's in your hands now to support the preservation of the beautiful neighborhoods of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Greenberg, Ruth Scribner, Celeste Hong. Welcome.
My name is Robin Greenberg. I'm president of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. I value being able to speak today, and I am offended by Herman and his words. I want to thank our city councilmen, Paul Koretz and David Rue, who are our councilmen in our neighborhood council, whose opinions we value and whose help we seek. I want to thank the LA Planning Department for spending so much time on the issues that help us in our hillsides lead a better life. We are the hillsides of streets of Roscommere Road, Beverly Glen, Coldwater, Benedict Canyon, Laurel Canyon, and all the tributaries. We have been confronted with daily construction. To quote the Hillside Federation, whose words I value, the amount of grading for the projects in the hillsides have caused substantial degradation of natural terrain. And I would also like to work with you in getting the by right grading quantity cubic yards down to 1,000, and to remind you that there is a fluff factor in taking the dirt out of the hills of 1.25%.
Thank you. Ruth Scribner, Celeste Hong, Robert Eisel.
Hi, my name is Ruth Scribner, and I'm a homeowner in Los Angeles, and I am in favor of the BMO proposals. However, it needs to be strengthened in two ways. First is the front-loaded attached garages need to have their total square footage counted. Otherwise, mansionization will continue to be fueled, as the attached garage encourages the oversized institutional boxy massing, which dominates the surrounding homes in a negative way and destroys the fabric of the neighborhood forever. The second is the 20% bonus, which is actually a loophole bonus and is open for abuse. It is difficult, if not impossible, to enforce and oversee. And I really am concerned about that as well. And as for, there's been people saying people don't realize they can't do things to their houses. When mansions come up in our neighborhood, everyone is just aghast. People know about this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Celeste Hong. I urge the council to close the loopholes with the mansionization ordinance. This is about quality of life and the integrity architecturally, culturally, and historically of the city of Los Angeles. Many of these buildings have been around for 80 and 90 years. To have them just bulldozed and forgotten, and Los Angeles's history and scale and scope to be forgotten along with them is just unacceptable. We are moving towards a future where we're less car-centric, and I think that including the 500 square foot footage exemption is not right. It should be included in the overall square footage of the house. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I'm Robert Isley, Vice President of the La Brea Hancock Homeowners Association, and we wholeheartedly support strong BMO amendments. We'd like the exemption for attached garages eliminated, as well as the 20% bonus. As for those who feel penalized by the BMO amendments, Recode LA can answer their concerns. But we need a strong BMO to answer the concern of all of us for more affordable housing in Los Angeles. Like some of you on this committee, I was raised in a working class home. And I was lucky enough to raise my kids in a middle class home in La Brea, Hancock. With a $3.5 million McMansion now on the block, my children will probably never be able to afford the neighborhood they were raised in. Don't turn LA into another Manhattan where only the rich can afford to live near the city center. Support strong and uncompromised BMO amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Luffman.
Hi, council members. Stephen Luffman. I'm a board member of Mid-City West Community Council. I come here speaking for myself. I support the Planning Commission's baseline mansionization ordinance, but I think it should be further strengthened by eliminating the garage exemptions. Our neighborhoods are not for investment and maximizing investments. They're about raising families and living your lives. And that's what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron Taylor Brown, Diana Easley, Steve Cochran.
Good afternoon. I'm Cameron Taylor Brown, and I live in the La Brea Hancock neighborhood. I am here to say that I support the BMO amendments, but I feel that the Planning Commission got it completely wrong about attached garages. Garages that are at the back of the home provide the buffer of a driveway, and they don't disrupt the look of our older neighborhood. And garages at the front are just really bad news. We have a home next door to us that's a newer home with a garage in the front, and now we can hear them talk in their home. There's no privacy anymore. There's no light. Major trees were taken out for in the parkway area so that they could have a much broader, wider driveway, and there's not enough parking anymore on our street. So please, at an absolute minimum, count the square footage of garages that are attached at the front. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I got that last name correct on the second try, right? Is it Easley or Isley?
Isley.
Isley. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all. I have gratitude for all the work you've done addressing the needs of our communities. I'd like to talk briefly about an issue that there's many issues here, but I'm going to talk about fairness. When behaviors are harmful, we teach our children to change their behavior, that it is the right thing to do. Mansionization is kind of like a form of bullying, actually, and must be addressed. We were never against development. We're not NIMBYs, just please go forward with the common sense measures. The house on the top is before the ICO, 5.5 bathrooms. The house below is a family-oriented house with 5.5 bathrooms. It can be done. The top is a house near me, now a party house. Okay, so it is possible with a little creativity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Steve Cochran.
Thank you, Steve Cochran, CD5 resident. Esteemed Plum Committee members, I'm holding 170 individually signed letters. We realize that the BMO intends to bring a more balanced approach to real estate development in Los Angeles. We do, however, find that the latest draft has gone too far in its restrictions, and that if passed into code, would be disastrous to both the needs of the modern family and to property values. 0.45 is too restrictive for lots smaller than 7,500 square feet. We are in favor of a maximum 0.5 FAR for lots less than 7,500 square feet. 0.5 is not a McMansion. It is a reasonable middle ground solution. Garage exemption up to 400 square feet, regardless of location. 150 square foot exemption for covered patio, and 100 square foot exemption for double height ceilings. Not exempting these would diminish architectural character. We respectfully request that our voices be heard in the strongest possible way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll hear from the council offices. Julia Duncan from Council District 4, Sean Bayless, Council District 5, and Tricia Keene from Council District 11.
Good afternoon, council members. Julia Duncan, Councilman David Rue's office. Protecting residential neighborhoods is a critical priority for our community, and we thank the Planning Department, the City Planning Commission, this committee, and the community at large that has worked toward the revisions presented in the draft ordinance. We feel these changes have come very close to fulfilling the requested actions initiated by Councilmember Koretz's motion. In totality, the changes addressed in the proposed amendments go a far way in addressing out-of-scale development and the impacts created by hillside developments. From the elimination of some exemptions to the reduction in FAR to 0.45 for R1 lots, establishment of encroachment planes and side facade articulation, the draft has addressed significant and pressing concerns necessary for neighborhood preservation and context. There are, however, two items the council member feels must be addressed that have significant impacts on the hillside communities in particular. Specifically, the guaranteed minimum residential floor area in hillside areas is set at 1,000 square feet. We have large numbers of substandard or non-conforming lots, those under 5,000 square feet, that through this provision allow for a guaranteed minimum regardless of impacts. With the exemption of up to 200 square feet of a front-facing garage, that effectively guarantees a 1,200 square foot structure. Our office would recommend that the guaranteed minimum RFA be reduced to 800 square feet, thus allowing for a garage and the exemption and putting the total square footage of the structure at 1,000 square feet. The minimum set is incompatible with hillside neighborhood character, and the infrastructure impacts of these projects is not being equally balanced. The other item is the increase in maximum by right grading quantities from the original draft of 1,000 cubic yards to now 2,000 cubic yards for R1 zones. Will lead to significant infrastructure issues. Over the past year, we have had streets collapse and homes red tagged, which has or will cost the city millions. Construction vehicles are exempt from weight limits, and the impacts of these vehicles are increasing the deterioration rate of our already 100-year-old streets. It is essential for both public safety and the integrity of our hillside communities that the maximum by right grading quantities for R1 zones be reduced to 1,000 cubic yards. We again thank the Planning Department and the communities for their work on these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Bayless.
Good afternoon, council members. Sean Bayless from Councilmember Paul Koretz's office. I know that we've been here a while, so I'll certainly make this brief. First of all, really have to applaud the Planning Department for taking such a fast and active role in this process. To get the ICOs online so quickly and to get through the BMO BHO rewrite process so quickly has been amazing. And we're just thrilled that we're here today and hoping that we can get through council as quickly as possible as well. As we talk about the nuances of each proposed code, we're certainly supportive of the BMO and BHO rewrites. We helped start the motions themselves to get this process going. When we talk about the BHO, we certainly agree with Council District 4 on reducing by 200 square foot that 1,000 by right minimum structure size, again from 1,000 down to 800 square feet. Additionally, we're supportive of and would like to see the R1 maximum grading amount, which is currently set at 2,000 cubic yards, to be 1,000 cubic yards, again, just for the R1 zone properties in the hillsides. And lastly, with regards to the Hillside Ordinance, one of the reasons that led us to be here today was the loophole with regards to grading underneath the homes, underneath structures. While the limits on grading were set at just a few thousand cubic yards in the hillsides, we saw grading in our council district at 25,000 cubic yards, 35,000 cubic yards, even almost 50,000 cubic yards for a single family home. It really highlighted the loophole that was created, and we're fixing that here today. Another loophole that we're concerned about that might still remain and be misused is the Caisson Exemption. That dirt is still considered exempt. There's a practicality as it comes to the difficulty of how do you equate the number of caissons, the depth, how many cubic yards comes out of that. But Bel Air has kind of shown us the extremes of single-family home development, and we have homes currently under construction that are proposing 200, 250 caissons for, again, a single-family home. We're talking about many thousands of cubic yards of grading that's coming out that's not getting counted. And we're concerned that it could be misused, again, in that area, that they would almost be putting in caissons just so they could do the grading, whether they need the caissons or not. So the thought is, in the interim, as we move from Plum to council, is there a way to somehow quantify, put a limit on the amount of grading that is equated to caissons? With regards to the baseline mansionization ordinance, we are very supportive of what came out of the City Planning Commission, 45% across the board as it relates to R1 properties. The council member feels strongly that that is workable. And additionally, when we talk about the garages, it's not about having a car parked in the rear of the home. It's about forcing that natural space in between homes by having that driveway down the side of the home. It creates that natural buffer. You know, in a perfect world, we would certainly like to see, the council member is not for requiring garages in the back. It should be on a neighborhood by neighborhood desire. There are now zones that were created by the planning department that require garages in the rear. We don't feel that the baseline mansionization ordinance should require a garage to be in the rear. However, we'd like to see it incentivized. And so that's why we were looking at allowing for the 400 square foot exemption if the garage is in the rear as opposed to the front. The City Planning Commission kind of split that apple and said, well, 400 if it's in the back, 200 if it's in the front. At least at the end of that day, it's still creating some kind of incentive to do that, not a requirement. But regardless, we're pleased at what came out of City Planning Commission, and just pleased with everyone that's been involved with this at their just fast due diligence at making this happen.
Thank you. Tricia Keene, CD 11.
Good afternoon, Tricia Keene with Councilmember Mike Bonin. As you know, the effort to address concerns about the BMO and BHO started over 2 years ago, and during that time, the Planning Department staff has spent many hours working with our community members in particular and stakeholder groups to develop amendments that are responsive to the wide variety of concerns that we've been hearing. I do want to thank staff, especially Tom and Phyllis, for all of the time that they've invested in this issue and in our community to help people understand what was being proposed and to hear the feedback from the public as to whether the amendments were solving the problems that they set out to solve. Since this effort began, our office has heard from many stakeholders in our neighborhoods, sometimes in support of the proposed changes and other times with concerns that the changes were going too far or were not fixing the things that led the city to update the BMO and BHO in the first place. While there are still some outstanding issues that you have heard about today, there are a couple of points that I'd like to focus on that the council member would ask that you consider modifying. The first relates to the overall baseline FAR for the R1 zones that are covered by the BMO. The amendments propose to reduce the FAR to 0.45 for all lots zoned R1, and we'd ask that your committee, that this committee consider reinstating the FAR that was in the original baseline mansionization ordinance to have a 0.5 for the R1 zones covered by the BMO. The original focus of the efforts to update the BMO did involve the elimination of loopholes that resulted in buildings that were much larger than originally anticipated. And with the other changes that have been proposed in the BMO amendments, we feel that the concern has been largely addressed, and therefore we ask that the original baseline FAR be reinstated. The second item relates to the garage exemption, which you have heard a lot about today. The councilman has heard from many of our residents that because the city requires 2 covered parking spaces for a single-family house, that the full 400 square feet of garage area should be exempt. Our community members and our neighborhoods have a slightly different perspective than you may have heard in public comment today. Many of our neighborhoods do not have a pre-existing pattern of development with garages to the rear of the lots. In fact, a lot of them were developed at a time when it was much more common to put garages to the front of the lot and have front-loading garages that are attached to the house. For those areas, the community members who live in those areas have definitely pointed out that to effectively require garages to be located to the rear of the property would in fact change their development patterns and the character of their neighborhoods. And so with that in mind, while we understand that the principles driving the Planning Commission's decision were well-intentioned to have a hybrid approach to the garage exemption, there are other tools that are being developed, such as the rear garage overlay zoning, that could solve a number of the problems for areas where it is absolutely appropriate to require that garages be located to the rear of the property. Therefore, the councilman does request that the full 400 square feet of garage exemption be reinstated for the citywide baseline mansionization ordinance, since it's not necessarily consistent that there's a pattern of rear garage development throughout the city. The final item I'd like to point out is, and we've heard from a number of stakeholders about this, is that the 20-foot encroachment plane for the BMO amendments creates some challenges on some of the typically narrow lots often located in our neighborhoods for having a full 2-story house located at the required setback line. For these stakeholders, they've pointed out that when you have to develop or have to build a crawl space or a raised foundation to accommodate your house systems and your utilities, that does count against the overall 20 square feet. Those can be about 24 inches in height, which may not leave enough height to develop a full 2-story house with the ceiling heights that are typical in today's construction. Those stakeholders have asked that that issue be considered when this committee, it's been a long afternoon, is considering this issue. So with these modifications, the councilman does believe that there is a good balance that can be struck between allowing people to modernize their homes while still protecting the character of neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, what's your name? I understand we misplaced your card.
Yeah, thanks. My name is David Wheatley. Can I have my minute?
Yeah, if you could, after you speak, fill out a card just so we could have it for the record and on file.
Sure, happy to. Thank you. I'm David Wheatley. I live in the Silver Lake of LA since 1975. Around the corner from me, a giant structure went in. A single-family home was demolished, and a huge, huge structure went in. I'm opposed to these oversized buildings going on in my neighborhood or any other ones. When I take walks in the area, they're just way, way too big. So I support the most restrictive ordinance this group could ever imagine or create, and also ask that we have another one that requires any mansion that slipped through the cracks to be demolished and taken away somewhere else. I'd also like to see whatever was the building that was there before, restored and replaced. Also, thank you very much. As far as private property, many of us have cars. There are rules as far as what we can do with our cars. We can't slam them into other cars. There need to be more rules as far as what people can do with their properties as well, as far as how their changes affect other people. And thanks for listening, and I'll fill this out.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. So that concludes public comment. If staff could come up, please, to the podium. One thing I just wanted to clarify for the record is to confirm whether or not the ordinance that we're proposing will increase or lower the number of required parking spaces for a single-family home.
And the short answer is no. The code requires 2 covered parking spaces
for single-family homes, and that's a requirement that's staying, and that's not even part of this ordinance. But I do want to clarify what the code says today is that we do exempt 400 square feet of your garage wherever it's placed, whether it's detached in the front of your house, in the back of your house, towards the size of the home. The ordinance change in front of you today no longer exempts any square footage of a garage if it's in the front of the house, but does exempt 200 square feet of it if it's in the rear of the house. So I know there was I heard some difference of opinions on that, but that's just to clarify. So the change is that we are not going to allow the exemption any longer in our recommendation. If the garage is in the front, half of it will be exempt if it's in the rear.
Okay, thank you. And also with regard to grading, how does the elimination of the cut and fill exemptions help protect our hillsides?
Well, I think a lot of what we heard also is that there has been excessive grading even after the baseline Hillside Ordinance was adopted back in 2011. One thing that had not been mentioned is that even though we do have very clear limits on the amount of grading allowed, we do exempt the grading that falls beneath the footprint of the home. So although the grading primarily has to retain the character of the hillside, what they can do for their actual basement has been unlimited. So we are, even though it looks like we are doubling the maximum allowance, we are actually severely curtailing the total number of cubic yards that you can take from your property.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I'll make a motion that we recommend that this committee request the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance to this committee requesting that amendments by the city planning outlined in their letter dated November 28, 2016 be adopted, except if it conflicts with the recommendations made today by CDs 5, 11, and 4. One is to restore the 200 square foot RFA exemptions for all garages, retain the 0.5 FAR for lots smaller than 7,500 square feet, and 0.45 FAR for lots larger than 7,500 square feet, reduce the guaranteed hillside RFA from 1,000 to 800, and reduce the maximum by right hauling for R1 zones from 2,000 cubic yards to 1,000 cubic yards. And I think that incorporates all the recommendations from the different council offices, correct? If you guys are still here, I may have missed something from CD 11. Tricia, did I cover everything on yours? I think I did. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to read that there was a mention of take another look at the caissons. We do continue to exempt in the ordinance grading related to caissons for support of the home.
Okay.
So I think that was something that came out of the Council District 5's office.
Okay, we'll incorporate that as well.
Okay.
All righty, so we will ask our city attorney to prepare an ordinance and bring it back to this committee with, as I mentioned, from the planning department's letter, and incorporate the recommendations made by the council districts in their public testimony as I outlined in my motion. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. And I want to thank those people who came out to testify. I know it's been a long time, but city attorney will draft the ordinance, bring it back to this committee for final approval in committee, and then we'll send it to full council. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. Next item.
There are no other items, Councilman.
Oh, we have public comment.
Yes.
Julie Beals, item number 7, public comment, general public comment. Julie Beals still here? Not here. Okay, that concludes our meeting, our items on the agenda. It concludes our meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, man. Thanks.
Madam, I put in a... Burro.